Okay, guys, we're going to be getting everything set up here before we get started at 6 o'clock. So I'm just making sure I've got all systems go. So as I see some of you getting logged in right now, I just want to tell you thank you for joining tonight. My name's Andy Young, the Mountain Money Man, coming to you live tonight from Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm just happy that it's not snowing, ice, sleet, rain, anything after the last week that we've had. And some of you maybe were without power. Some of you watching this, if you're watching from Texas or other areas that were affected, you might still be watching this as a replay because you didn't have power. It's been a trying week with that. But while we're waiting on everyone that's getting signed in, just want to tell you a couple things. You will have the ability that at the end of the time that we're going over this, it should pop up automatically with a Zoom link to my calendar. If you already know before we get started tonight that, hey, I've got questions specifically that I want to address with Andy to sit down and just kind of figure out financially, what does it mean with charitable giving and where does that fit in with my plan? This 15 minutes that it's open for you. You can just ask the questions that are important to you, and I'm happy to answer that, whether we do anything past that point or not. Just my way of giving back. So that link takes you to my online calendar. You can find a time that works for you with my calendar, and we will do that. We'll just connect on the phone and go from there. But it looks like we're getting signed in. So awesome. I see Ward, Joseph, Zach, Amy, Daniel, Sharice, Eric, Monique, Nick, Tracy, Sarah, David, Elizabeth, David, Tim, Heather, Mike, Darren, Christina, Sarah, Bethany, Janice, Matt, Bobby, Marco, Morgan. All right. Got quite a few of you guys that are signing in. So obviously it's something that's on the hearts of a lot of you guys of trying to figure out, hey, with charitable giving, what can I do? Is there a way that I can do this better or different than what I'm already doing? So that's exactly what I want to share with you tonight. Just some ideas, some concepts that might help you out with that. So we are coming up on the hour. Guys, one of my promises and commitments is timeliness. If I say I'm starting at 6 o'clock, I'm starting at 6. So let's get ready to roll here at 6 o'clock as we go through with that. Just to make my compliance officers happy, I've got to keep this up for about 2 seconds. But we're just going to look at this. Everything that I'm covering tonight, it's just for informational purposes. It's to give you some ideas around what might be beneficial for you. But I act as a fiduciary. I have to do what's in your best interest. And in order to do that, I have to know you and your personal situation. So with that being the case, don't take action on anything I'm saying to do tonight without seeking out the advice of a financial professional that can help guide you through, and a tax professional for that matter. A lot of what we're doing is going to be holistic or comprehensive planning, and that requires a team. So I'm the financial professional of that team, right? When I'm working with clients or I'm sitting down with people with charitable organizations, what I hear often is that people are trying to figure out how can they do multiple different things? How can they protect their family income? You know, this is something that while you're working, you're trying to figure out how can you sustain that living with that. You wanted to plan for a secure retirement. We never want to plan in a way that with charitable giving that it's detrimental to these goals. We want to make sure that it's working in concert with that. Estate planning is a big part of this. I saw a local law firm as I was driving down the road today that was basically advertising saying, hey, let's make sure it's not messed up. You want to be proactive with those things to make sure that your wishes are met. And it's not just an old person problem. This isn't a problem that you have when you're 80 years old. Estate planning is something you do even when you're young. And supporting your favorite charitable organizations. That's probably the key word that you saw that had you originally interested in attending tonight so that we could go through with that. So why do we even give to charity? It's different things for different people. You know, maybe you grew up where it was part of your tithing that you were giving and you wanted to see that in action. Some people tithe with money. Some people give with their time. It's different for every person. You give in ways that you're able to. You might want to just help other people, right? Some people are wired that way. My wife is a huge giver. She wants to give in many different ways. And that's one of those things that we want to find ways that we can bless other people. You might be inspired by a personal connection or personal growth. You know, if you could remember that your grandparents always bought soup for the gentleman at the corner that didn't have a lot of money, that might motivate you to where you want to be able to share and be a resource at Blue Ridge Food Bank, for instance. You know, there's different ways to be able to give back. So before we begin, you know, just a couple questions for you as you're watching this right now. Are you involved with any charitable organizations? You know, that's something that as we're trying to figure that out for you, it's your own personal conviction and what's important to you that's going to help drive how some of these things make sense for you. What legacy do you actually want to leave? Is it that you want to leave a legacy to a charity? Is it that you want to leave it to your family, or to both? We're going to cover different avenues of making that happen tonight. And are you aware of charitable giving strategies? I was actually meeting with someone this past week, and she works at a local 501c3 organization. She said, you know what? I absolutely love the advisor I've been working with. I've worked with him for years. In fact, before I had any money to invest with him, he would always give me the time of day. And because of that, when I came into money with some inheritance, not a lot, but it was enough to make a difference, I went to him and sought out his help. But, this charitable giving thing, we never really address it. And I don't know if it's because he doesn't know anything around that, or if he just doesn't care. Guys, this is something that's a bigger problem for people, of trying to figure out what does that look like and what are the different things. It can get complicated. Quite frankly, it's one of those things that when I say you need to have a team, this is where when I'm working with my higher level givers, it's a team of people around the table that are helping make this decision. We've got the financial piece, the tax piece, and the legal piece to make everything happen and do it in the proper way. So if you're making that significant gift and it's complex, we don't want to try to make use the same solution that we would use for a very uncomplicated situation. We give in ways that we can, but we want to make sure that we take into account things that have changed. A couple years back with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, some people call it the Trump tax code, there were changes where it doubled the standard deduction. I was on a call with Share Greater Lynchburg earlier today, and some of the organizations were covering that, hey, with this change, some of the giving actually was reduced or eliminated by some people because they just weren't getting the tax break. Now, to me, that means that they don't have a strategy around it to make sure that they can still get a itemized deduction so that they can get the benefit out of that. But, hey, we want to make sure that it all fits together again. Make sure that a skilled attorney drafts documents. Anytime we're doing legal documents, we don't want to have this to where you just typed it out on a Word doc and took it to your bank and got it notarized. We want to make sure that we're doing this all appropriately so it's named the right way, because there are tax implications, both while you're living and when you're gone, that are going to happen with that. And protect your priorities. Priorities, we don't want to give in a way where it doesn't allow us to see a fruitful life to where we have enough money to last our lifetime. None of the organizations that I know that I work with would want to see someone give in a way where they are no longer able to afford a standard of life at 82 years old because they overgave. So we want to see how that looks and what we can do to help out around that. The other thing that we look at as far as looking at charitable planning strategies that include direct outright gifts. This is what a lot of people think of cash giving. If I asked 9 times out of 10, if someone's giving, they're normally giving from their cash flow. This would be your standard tithe setup at the church. That 10% of what you are earning is going to the kingdom. But what people don't always think of is some of the gifts that you can give when it comes to your charitable giving, like stocks, securities, brokerage accounts, being able to give life insurance or real estate. You can even give money from your retirement account or the entire retirement account. There's lots of different avenues when it comes to this. So there's lots of sizes, all shapes and flavors when it comes to this. And it matters whether you're giving it while you're alive or once you're deceased when it comes to the tax treatment with that. So this is one of the most popular ways that I see people giving when maybe they don't have the ability to give on the scale that they want to while they're living. So sometimes people will ask about purchasing a life insurance policy. Before you tune out and immediately hit close on the window, don't worry, I'm not trying to sell you life insurance. I'm simply saying this is a tool that some people use to make this happen. So you can dedicate a portion or even all of that policy to go to the charity of your choice. This is a way that you can take pennies and turn them into dollars. So there's no minimum or maximum gift that you can give here. It just depends upon the amount of your policy. But it's all about what do you want to give over your lifetime and what legacy do you want to leave. It's private. It's not public record. So whereas you left this as part of your will that would go through probate is going to be out in the open, If we give it through a life insurance policy, it's not going to be published. It's not part of that public record with that. And if you give this to the charity, you might actually get some tax breaks. It depends on how you have stuff structured, but that's ways that you can put money that otherwise would be going to the IRS and put it in your pocket to give with your charitable gifts instead. This is one of those ways. So if you take that life insurance policy, you designate the charity as the beneficiary. Along the way, you, if it was a permanent insurance policy, could actually borrow funds from that, from the cash value. So you can take a partial surrender or you can take a loan. And if you're doing that, we're pulling the money out and we're not having to worry about an income tax because that money is a policy loan. It's not that we're actually pulling money out of an account. When we pass, whatever balance is left of the face of the actual death benefit is going to go to the charity. So it's a way that we can take that and be able to give to others. Another way around that, though, is that sometimes people will give money. They will give that money, and I'm going to show you with this. So we will take the money from you, the donor, and we're going to give that as a gift to charity. You got to give cash in this case, right? We're going to give cash to the charity. That charity is going to take that exact dollar amount that you gave and go purchase a life insurance policy. So if you're giving, let's say it's $200 a month to charity, you can give this. If you qualify for life insurance, the charity can actually own this policy. You're getting a tax deduction on the $200 a month that you're putting in there. They are going to get the life insurance policy down the road. So the charity is going to use that death benefit at some point in time to help run things forward. That's what's going to make everything work. So that's what we've got as far as the first way of giving in a way that people don't often think about, and that's actually with life insurance with that. So let's move on to the second way. We're looking at giving money out of retirement accounts like a 401k, an IRA, if you might be a teacher, so it's a 403b, SEP IRA, simple IRA, doesn't matter with that, you can still give with this. What do they have in common? These are all accounts where you have not paid tax on the money yet. It's just sitting here in your piggy bank. So at some point in time, if you haven't pulled any money out of the piggy bank, the IRS is going to come and knock on your door and they're going to say, hey, we noticed that you haven't been pulling any money out. You're now 72 years old. We need you to start pulling that money out. And if you don't, we're going to charge you a penalty. What's nice is if you don't need that money to support your lifestyle, you can actually take that money. You can withdraw the money that you need to satisfy that minimum distribution, but you can give it directly to the charitable organization. Why is that important? If we do that, then we have eliminated the IRS. How have we done it? We gave that gift directly to charity from the IRA, so that withdrawal went straight to them. It didn't touch my hands. It didn't touch your hands. It went straight to them. By satisfying that requirement, we do not owe tax. So if you're in a 12%, 20%, 30% tax bracket, 50% tax bracket at that point in time, it doesn't matter. You've eliminated that tax. Again, that's the second way that I've told you of ways that we can kick the IRS out of our life when it comes to taxes here. Totally legal, and you can give more of that money to charity with that. So what if you're not 72? Well, this strategy is not going to work right now for that in the same way. What else can you do? You can actually take that entire retirement account. So if you're 70 and a half or older, you have the opportunity, you can make that qualified distribution. It's a direct distribution from the traditional IRA, like I said, and you're going to be giving that to the charity. We're able to get that. There's not a deduction in this scenario, right? So if I'm giving the money from my cash or a stock gift, something like that, I'm going to get a charitable deduction. In this case, there's no deduction. It's just that I don't owe tax on that money. I'm eliminating the income tax. What if I wanted to give the entire IRA? I had someone, Jill, that went through this. Jill had had a successful career as an engineer. And when Jill was looking at retiring, she was about 5 years out. We started looking at things, and we wound up, as we did our analysis, which is important, you have to have a financial plan to know this. And a financial plan is not just this static, big, thick document that says, hey, this is what it said at one point in time. This is a living, breathing thing that's adjusting with your life. But We looked at it first just to kind of scan through with her financial pathway process and say, hey, what does this look like? How much money are we going to have left over? What we found is that with her lifestyle and all of her different income sources, she was going to have more than enough to last comfortably for the rest of her life until age 90, as we had projected it. So she said, I don't feel like I need this 401k. If I didn't have that, it wouldn't change things. So in that case, she could actually give that entire IRA and she could give that to the charity. That's one big legacy for you to leave. All that's required, you got to change the beneficiary on it. It's going to pass to them when you pass away. Now, keep in mind, the charity is not going to receive any donation until after you die. It means if they're not receiving any money until you die, there's no deduction until that point. So you can name them for the entire balance, a portion of the balance. It doesn't matter, but that's a way that you can give to the charities of your choice without being under the normal way of doing that. This is one of the biggest keys that I see that people are missing in their financial plan. And this is a beautiful way of doing this. It's called a donor advised fund. And if you haven't heard about this, you're not alone. This is one of the tools that I've seen a lot of people, when they first see it, it kind of opens up their giving plan. Remember, I said earlier that with the tax code changes, that a lot of people were doing just the standard deduction as opposed to itemized. If you're giving money into a donor advised fund, whatever money you're putting in is going to count as the deduction this year. So let's say that you're able to front load your giving for 2, 3, 4, or even 5 years. That means that if you have a large taxable event this year, that it's going to help offset that. I met with a gentleman, Ed, and Ed, we'll call him, when we were meeting, he was looking at doing some strategic moves. He wanted to move money from an environment where it was going to be taxable down the road to a bucket that was going to be tax-free. The problem is any of that money we moved across that line was going to result as calling it ordinary income, which meant his highest tax bracket. Well, Ed was a giver. Ed gave out of his accounts. He knew that every year he gave a certain amount. So we were actually able to offset some of that tax burden from the ordinary income by using a donor advised fund. We went ahead, we had the money available. We set aside the money for the next 5 years into that fund. It allowed him to give the way that he wanted to for the next 5 years. If he used it all up, he could always put more in, but it allowed it to satisfy what he needed to do. Why is that important? Because he gets the income tax deduction this current year. So, when we're doing that, there's lots of different places we can utilize that. There's places like here locally with the Greater Lynchburg Community Foundation that use these type of funds that I have clients that will utilize. Fidelity Charitable has this available for people to use with that, or National Christian Foundation. It just depends on your personal preference. But you normally have an online portal where you're going to go to that's going to allow you to send your giving out. So you send the money out when it's important. So what can you give inside of this? You make a irrevocable. Why is that important? That means once you give the gift, you can't take it back. It's an irrevocable gift of cash or property to the donor advised fund. So Mary that I worked with, she had a stock. She'd bought it years ago. And this stock, she'd put $15,000 in it. It was the company her mother worked at. And over time, this stock had done fantastically well. It was healthcare stock. She had no way of knowing this would happen. But when I first sat with her, it was valued at $937,000. Good problem to have, right? Well, the issue that she had with that is she said, it keeps me up at night because this stock is very volatile. It's all over the place. And I'm afraid that I sell it at the wrong moment. What happens? Well, she knew one thing that was going to happen regardless of where she sold it because it was valued at more than $15,000. She was going to have something called capital gains. Now, capital gains tax is absolutely voluntary. Not voluntary in the sense that you just skip paying it, because if you do that, you go to jail. I'm talking about voluntary in the sense that if you plan in the right way, you can plan to offset this and it doesn't exist. So in her case, we were able to take a portion of that stock. We moved it into the donor advised fund because she was able to see with proper planning that she had more than enough to last. We sold the stock inside of that, which generated no capital gains. Now, why did she like that? Because up front, when she sold that property, That tax deduction she got up front was hers. She gifted the property and it resulted in no capital gains tax. We just sold that and invested the money to where that's going to be able to be available as the donation money bucket. So you can do the same thing for lifetime gifts. So the donors, successors, that step in, they're going to be over that fund in the future. So this is your family fund. This is your legacy. This is what you're trying to do with that. We're going to let them be able to control that. And this is your legacy that's going to help remember you for years to come. This is how you make a generational change with your wealth. So grants can be made anonymously. They can be made in the name of the charity. It doesn't matter with that, but it allows you to continue to move forward and do this. You may also name a donor advised fund as a beneficiary of any number of assets. So you could leave your retirement accounts to the donor advised fund. You could leave life insurance policies in here. When setting up, you just want to be able to set it up to where it accepts these types of assets to come in. But that allows you to continue that legacy upon your death. And upon your death, your will, your trust, your counter policy is going to pay into the designated account for that donor advised fund. And what will they do? They will sell and invest. And it's going to allow that legacy to continue for you. So when that happens, we're going to allow that. They're going to direct how that flows out to charity. So you could have that set as part of your trust as far as how that's going to actually work. It could be that you trust them to be able to make those decisions. It just matters that you've set it up. Charitable planning strategies also include some different ways to retain income from your planning. So maybe you have money that you want to be able to give, but you go, if I give all of that money, I'm not going to have anything to live on. So these strategies allow the donor to retain some of the income interest for a specified period of time or even life, and the remainder at the end of the term goes to the charity. So what does that look like? The first way would be something called a charitable remainder trust. So the charity is going to receive the remainder, just like how it's named. So this allows you to make a large gift to a charity while you retain the right to receive the income from it. And the time period is just going to dictate what percentages you're doing. So it might be for a fixed period of 5 years, 20 years, for your life, the life of both you and your partner. It doesn't matter with that, but there's different calculations that go into it. So it can be rather complicated. You want to make sure that this is planned professionally. So based upon the terms, you as the donor, so if I go back to my board, I've got to look over here. So you as the donor, you're going to give property. So let's just call it money, right? We're going to give money in this case to the trust. So that charitable remainder trust is going to make payments to you as the donor. You're going to pay income tax on the payments to the IRS. But remember, you got an income tax deduction up front on the gift of the property. Now, what a lot of people will do to help offset this, because these are sometimes sizable gifts, you're giving a lot here in this case, they don't want to miss out on what they're doing to try to create a legacy for their family. They love charity, they love giving, but they want to do more. They will have a life insurance policy that actually pays out a death benefit to fill back up the tank of the family. And then what's that family going to do? If they saw the blessing that that's created, they're going to probably rinse and repeat. They're going to do the same thing themselves with that. Now, the charitable remainder trust, it's a way to supplement retirement. Anna that I worked with, in her case that we were doing this, we were looking at it that she knew that she was going to get a pension. She knew that she was going to get Social Security, but she wanted a little bit more guaranteed income. So we were able to use this way of giving to allow us to be able to have that money that was still flowing to us while we needed it. So you can just diversify across that. You can use it to fund education. You can use it to increase your current income stream. It doesn't matter. There's lots of different uses with that. But again, once you are gone, it's going to pass on to the charity, charitable remainder trust. Another way is a charitable gift annuity. So this, a lot of times annuity is the bad word. It's like the scarlet letter. But Fidelity Charitable has a fantastic presentation to be able to explain this. That's what I'm going to show to you. So you as the donor, you're going to sign an annuity agreement with the charity. It makes a lump sum donation and takes a partial tax deduction. So the charity is going to take that money. They're going to invest it for the charity, right? So that's going to be step 2. You as the donor are going to receive payments on a fixed schedule for the life of the terms of the annuity agreement. So if that's for 20 years, you're going to get those payments for 20 years. Step 4, what the charity is going to receive the balance of the invested funds upon your death. So basically, you've set up a lifetime stream of income that's going to be there for you, and then it's going to go away. When you die, the balance is going to go to them. The last way that I'm going to cover is going to be if you're a small business owner. I work with a lot of business owners every day here in the Central and Southwestern Virginia area. So several ways that you can donate, but here's the number one that I see that happens. You actually gift a portion of your business. So if a portion of the ownership of your business you give to the charity. What happens with that is in the future, that charity is going to sell those shares back to you or another party. It doesn't matter with that. They're going to sell them back and it's going to be tax-free. The charity, why do they do that? Because they receive cash for selling that portion of the business. It's a way that you can give something of future value. So let's say that you're starting up your company, you expect to see this grow even more. That's a way that you can give, you can get the deduction. It's going to help you out, helps the charity out because in the future it's going to be a cash flow raise for them. Make sure everything that you're doing, you've got to have a proper balance to it. Replace what you're giving to charity with something to help support your family. We don't want everyone resenting you because you were too one-sided. We want to make sure that we're making gifts that can be given in the proper way. And keep in mind, if you're making irrevocable gifts, gifts that cannot be undone, that you've used proper planning beforehand to see how everything fits with that. For you, if you're sitting there right now and you go, Andy, you've covered a whole lot tonight, and I'm just not really sure where to start or if this is even appropriate for me, that's what I would say. Reach out for that 15-minute conversation. You can just hit the schedule link on my calendar. It'll set a time that works for both of us just to have a quick phone call. And we'll see what works for you. After that phone call, if it makes sense, we'll set a time for 1 hour. I do a complimentary hour with everyone just to be able to go deeper, figure out specifically what's important for you. I call it the trailhead. We're in the Appalachian Mountains, but with that, the financial pathway process, we got a starting point. It's called the trailhead. So if we're there and we're seeing what's going on in your life, then we can start to make a plan together. After that first time, we'll see, do we want to work together further? If we do, we would cover what does that look like. If not, that's okay. We part as friends. You have a couple actionable ideas that you can take advantage of regardless. So be sure, if it's important for you to set a time to try to figure out your charitable giving, click that link. That way we can do that. If you're not sure, if you're just trying to figure out what might be appropriate, I tell you, go back and rewatch this. There's things that pop out. We have a lot of great organizations that are here locally in Lynchburg and Southwestern Virginia that are trying to make a difference, and you could help them if you have the right plan. If not, you're probably only paying with about 10% of your giving money. So you're leaving the other 90% on the table that could otherwise make a difference. So I want to tell you, thank you for tuning in tonight, for watching as we covered the different ways of being able to help make a difference. I do this every 2 weeks. So if you haven't already, be sure to go to my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/mountainmoneyman, MTN Money Man. And you'll see that every 2 weeks that there's a link for you to be able to go to as we go live. The one in 2 weeks is going to be about basically helping out with getting started on the financial piece. I tell you with that, it's financial goal setting. Who doesn't have things with that they have in mind? So financial goal setting is our next event in 2 weeks. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If there's anybody that you think that this could benefit, please share the video with them. And I look forward to talking to you soon.